to you. I hope you're staying healthy and comfortable and safe. And all of that put together and happy and sane, because this is, what is that line? These are the times that try men's souls, or these are the times that do something that make you say something crazy, right? Something like that, right? Whatever it is, it's that time, and we are in the middle of it, and uh, the question is, when is it going in? And the answer is, I don't know. Let's, you and I, figure out where we're at. First of all, hello. And hey, by the way, if you make a comment here, there, right over here, right in this area, right down here, okay? Okay. Make a comment right down in this area here, okay? See this area. That comment, I just might pop it up here, okay? Right there. All right, I just might make it do the magic thing. Anyway, you get the idea. Okay, so hey, big problem. First of all, Cal UNLV was supposed to be the signature match, the game that said to the world in one fell football swoop, Las Vegas has arrived and football is here. It was a contest that I was looking forward to for several reasons. A, I really would love to see the stadium, okay? B, Cal, my sturdy Golden Bears are in it. And I am a card-carrying member of the Cal Alumni Association. Was on the Cal Alumni Board for a total of 7 years. And I've had some of my best years in existence at Cal. I met some fantastic people. And I'd love Las Vegas. I'm just excited to see the whole shebang, working right. Yeah, I've talked about the stadium issues. I'm talking about them now. But this is also a project that I wish had been done separate from Oakland. I've said that before because I love both cities. Oakland's my home. I love the Raiders in Oakland. I love the Raiders here. But my background's in urban planning. And look, if you're a planner, you love stuff like this. All right. You just do. It's just the way it is. You're not a builder if you don't. You're not a planner, urban planner, if you don't. So all of that came together with something else. Hey, Aaron, how you doing? Nice to see you. Something else that I went to school to deal with, and that's economic planning. That's right. Even in the case of a pandemic should never frighten an economic planner, because economic planners understand that on a federal level, hey, you do what? You print money. Money. Right, Aaron? You print money, okay? Money. Only this administration, actually, I should be pointing at, yeah, that's right. It's in that direction toward Washington. Doesn't get a clue when it comes to that. In fact, neither do the Dems. And it's like, hey, look, you know what? Have one big freaking package that's like between 7 and 9 trillion, excuse me. Yeah, it's that big. It's got to be. And get ready to fix the interest rates for years to come, to pay them down. But you got to do it to save America, to save food supplies, food chains, economic chains, everything else, all right? Yeah, when I say economic chains, I mean the suppliers that supply the materials to provide the finished product, the suppliers that provide sub-services for the service that you provide, all that. If that chain fails, your product and or service doesn't get delivered, unless, of course, it happens to be you. And then, of course, you've got to worry about getting sick. It's a bad situation, all right? So we've got the country in this situation, in this state, and the Raiders in the middle of it. This wasn't the first time I took up this subject. The last time that I did, for those of you who are loyal viewers, you might recall that I introduced this spreadsheet, which I'll give it full relief. And this is a spreadsheet that I have had around first in Excel form on Open Office, and now here on Google Sheets, excuse me. And this is based on a spreadsheet that was created by the stadium consultants to the Southern Nevada Tourism and Infrastructure Committee way back in 2016. And I took note of the PDF, kept it for a rainy day, started playing around with it that year, and quite obviously never stopped. The changes that I made were to make sure that it was essentially contemporary to the situation of the stadium. That is, back then they had a concept, now we've got the real thing. I tried to make sure that the numbers matched the real thing so I could get an understanding, a better understanding of the actual dollar flows through the project, okay? So far, so good. Now, what we have, I'm not going to go through it in a gigantic lot of detail because I don't want to lose people, but I will basically just say right here, and I'll say that, first of all, if you can see this, if you can see me highlighting it like that, all right? This is where I want you to pay attention to. It's this red, okay? And the reason why they are in the red to this amount simply has to do with the fact that the project cost here is over the total funding sources. And one of the funding sources that has to be paid back, actually, this says 600 million. It's really a $650 million loan from Bank of America. Okay, boom. All right. So which puts us at a negative 483 million. And there's the team investment. The surplus PSL revenue has to be adjusted. That says 225 million, but as you and I both know, it is substantially more than that. So we're going to set it at 425 million. And this number, okay, and so these numbers start to look pretty good. You still have this in the red, but the expected revenue that I'm about to present to you down here, okay, would create a total project operating cash flow of negative $94 million. All right. Now, this is assuming that we have a total event revenue set at 1. Okay. 1 means you get all of your revenue from your expected events, 934 million to the stadium, and then total non-event revenues are reflected in the sponsorships, which we had set at being damaged. This is at 75% of what you would get. This is what we did last time. Now, normally it would look like this, okay? Set to 1, that's what it would look like. Roughly 800 million to $1 billion. Conservatively, we say 800 million. If they got 800 million, then look, they're in the black. Total operating cash flow, see down there, $105 million, okay? But what's going on is quite simply this. They're not in the black. They are, because this is tied to event revenue. So let's just say for grins, they're at, 75% of the expected 800 million, all right? And if they're at that, and hopefully it goes from $1 billion to 800 million because they still would be, marginally okay. But if it goes to $600 million, all right, they're in trouble, okay? And they have to figure out how to deal with this. If it goes lower than that, obviously they've got a problem. On top of this, okay? So and then there's the public investment for streets and roads. This actually is supposed to be greater, but because the overall cost is actually, and I pointed this out, actually $1 billion according to Nevada Department of Transportation. But if you paid attention to this, then you know that there's no money to deal with that. Let me come back to your comments here. Adam, how you doing? Aaron says A's to San Jose, maybe. No, because of the court issue. John Akala says hello. By the way, hey, Aaron, I want to remind everybody regarding the Athletics to San Jose. If the Athletics under Dave Cavall went to San Jose, it would mean, first of all, that they were backing away from the legislation that they worked to produce with the mayor of Oakland, with Assemblyperson Rob Bonda, and other elected officials, including Nancy Skinner, and just all of a sudden decide to cut and head south. That is un-Dave Cavall-like, all right? That's not something that either he or the A's people would allow. It's just wrong to leave what potentially could be $1 billion, even after the pandemic, $1 billion on the table that they actually had a gigantic hand in establishing because they're politically smart. That's the first problem. The second problem is that San Jose, down there, you have to pay the Giants between $5 and $20 million to enter because you're invading the Giants' space, okay? That issue was settled a long time ago, and I don't know why it keeps coming up, and whoever keeps bringing it up on a consistent basis is just selling you snake oil. It's not going to happen. It's never going to happen. They can forget it, okay? Period. And I'm, all things considered, I'm fine. Bowen says stadium event canceled July 13th, 2020, and 11:54 HTK Las Vegas. Hey, how you doing, Dave? Nice to see you. John Akala. John says, even though we didn't see this pandemic coming, Raiders would have been better off opting into their lease in Oakland. Yeah, they would have. This is, look, you have to say it. This pure and simple would have been avoided if Mark Davis had done the smart thing and said, you know what, we're going to hedge our bets here. We're going to sign the lease to play in Oakland this year, give the stadium time to finish, and then we can go right into 2021, in fine fashion. But no, they had to be not only rushing it, but nasty about it, okay? Not giving the Coliseum JPA a right send-off, not giving the fans of Oakland the right send-off, nothing like that. No concern for the fans in Oakland. And it was finally reflected back by the fans in Oakland in the last game after being treated like crap for so long. And so you can't treat, all right? You can't treat people badly. You can't kick them sand in their face on a repeated schedule and then expect them to continuously love you. That's not how life works, okay? That is just not how life works. It reminds me of a line that John Lennon uttered in his famous song when he said, instant karma is going to get you, slap you right in the face. That's exactly what arguably is happening here. And so Bowen Lee says, with this going on, how can we have any large-scale events? And the answer is you can't. Because, first of all, we as a country are not sheltering in place, and we have this idea we need to open up to make our economy go, and under normal circumstances we do, Bowen, but the federal government can literally flood the economy with money, give, for example, United Airlines a $100 billion lifeline, and pour $500 billion into the airline. I would say, 50. Well, United Airlines could do with a $50 billion lifeline or a $25 billion lifeline. All right. But my point is, flood the economy with money. Sure, the interest rates after time are going to kick up, but you can fix them. You can control them over time. That's economic planning. That's what economic planners do. We don't have economic planners in the White House, and we don't have economic planners on either end of Congress. So here we are, the people of the United States of America indeed the world, waiting for answers from our governments. And we have, on a larger scale, looking outside the United States, we have spent so much time building this anti-intellectual path of either left or right or authoritarian or not, that in a number of cases, we've forgotten how to run our countries from an industrial complex standpoint. I mean, these aren't the heady days that I was paying attention to when I was first going to school, where you had the Ministry of International Trade and Industry expertly building the Japanese economy to take over the United States economy with respect to steel and automobiles. Oh, no, 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 no. We don't have that right now. We have multinational, multi-ownership across vast continents chaos. And we have people who believe that governments don't matter. Okay? Governments don't matter. In fact, they believe they can get governments to do their bidding anytime they want to. But the one thing these people can't do is print money. You need governments to do that, and the government has to have the desire intellectually and procedurally to do that. And that's not happening. Sorry for the long digression, but it's necessary for this conversation, okay? Work with me here. If you're a Zenster, you can do that. Now, in other words, you bring. Bowen says he is, bam, in Hong Kong. You get what I'm saying, Bowen. Barry Lee, and we don't have an education secretary. Barry, how is your health? Have you recovered from the coronavirus? Yes, Barry was diagnosed. John Akala says Mark Davis might have to sell part of the team to Adelson now, and that is what brings me, John, to this point of the conversation. I believe, John, you were right earlier about this, and I'm going to take a step further when John says, even though we didn't see this pandemic coming, Raiders would have been better off opting into to lease in Oakland in 2020. But not only that, John, I think you're absolutely right. But had Mark Davis elected to, let's say he elected to stay in Oakland and take the Oakland deal. I'm not going to say the Bay Area economy is not challenged. It obviously is very challenged, like all the other places in the world. But the one problem the Raiders would not have had to face actually, you know what? It would have been with the financing. They would have had a problem with the sponsors. Okay? They would have had a problem with the sponsors. But if the sponsors were tech, if they were able to land sponsors that were deeper pocketed, they could better weather the storm. Note that we don't have, in the case of the Golden State Warriors, for example, we don't have, talk of them having problems with their sponsors, and for good reasons. Their sponsors paid in, and they've been able to work out their deals ahead of time. Their sponsors have deep pockets, for the most part. I'm hesitating because there would have been problems. I'm not going to shine anyone on and say that there would not have been. But the problems would not have been as deeply acute because of the type of sponsors. In the Raiders case in Las Vegas, we have, and I say this as a proud owner of a couple of casino rewards cards, the sad fact that casinos are hurting and are going to continue to hurt, and that is the backbone of Las Vegas and Nevada for now and for the foreseeable future. Sports was to help Las Vegas and Nevada get out of that, but the problem is that, like casinos and hotels, sports are an event, and they rely on what? They rely on people to be there. And so what's going on is that every Cal versus UNLV single, Garth Brooks undoubtedly next, turn NFL preseason, we see these events, these large-scale events, which were major parts of the discussion, okay, the discussion over whether or not the Raiders stadium in Las Vegas could attract the necessary 49 large-scale events a year go away. And so the question is, what will Bank of America do? And that answer, I don't have. I will venture an educated guess that Bank of America wants to maintain the NFL and the Raiders as a client for, well, decades. And given this situation, I believe the bank would try to work out a deal with them. How that deal would look, I don't know. But I think it is prudent for the bank itself, in order to save its bottom line, to turn to the federal government and ask for assistance in an area where the president of the United States said he was going to provide it. By way of that sports task force he put together, where he put Commissioner Goodell on it, along with Jerry Jones and Bob Kraft of the Cowboys and the Patriots, respectively. Remember that one? Wow. So Barry Lee says he's good. Coronavirus is out, over, done. And then Barry says, what's this I hear about the NFLPA, NFL negotiations that could include any player being able to opt out of playing this season if they don't feel comfortable playing without a penalty? Yeah, that is something that is not finalized by any means, but it's talk that it could possibly happen. And so let's keep an eye on that and see what happens. I am quite interested in what happens with this whole preseason matter. The bottom line is that everyone believes that the NFL will have a season. I said it before, and I'll say it again. In order for us to see some possibility that our economy can recover in our way of life, we need the NFL. Just like we were getting baseball, we need these events to come back. Just for our psychology, because look, there is a microskeletal way of life that we're accustomed to. And it goes all the way down to, look, subconscious expectations of football, even if you're not a football fan, knowing that it's happening. But then to know that it's not happening because of this issue echoes the severity of this issue, and it doesn't scream, we can overcome this, okay? And that should give everyone concern. I do believe we can overcome this, and I think that Israel's pointed the way. I understand they have a possible vaccine. That news was rolled out on the 9th of July, which was last week. So John says, plus there will be a limited capacity of fans at any of all. Right, that's the other problem. You're not going to get people shoulder to shoulder, high-fiving and cheering and everything else. And not only that, what does it mean when you constrict the number of fans? When you say, hey, only a select number can come, right? It means the high dollar ones. That's what it means. And we don't even know if many of those high dollar people now are going to be high dollar when the games come around. It's not the unemployment rate. It's the underemployment rate. And folks, it's a gargantuan in proportions. And what is that? The underemployment rate is the people out there who are just taking something to make ends meet, just to keep some food on the table, right? Savings rates at zero. They're hoping for the best. That's a lot of people now. It's not 17%. By my estimation, it's more like 50%, 60%, thereabouts. And God forbid, we have a relaxation or an elimination of the eviction or the eviction stoppage legislation that's on the books in many cities and states like Oakland. Then you'll have people pushed out on the street on a whole new level of calamity and crime that we can ill afford to pay for from a city services standpoint. You see how this can spiral out of control like that? The driver is the government. The government has to cough up the money, and it can, okay? But President Trump is so busy trying to set us between each other and against each other. He finally wore a mask on Saturday that he screwed this up. He thought it's some sort of game. He didn't get it. This is not playtime. This is of biblical proportions. All right? So Edward Reed says, will Clark County pull its $750 million to the Raiders in the near future? And politically, I don't see that. It's not something they can pull because that's not how bond issue works. Okay, let me explain how it works. All right, Edward. First of all, it's a loan, and if you're borrowing money, you expect to get the money up front. But the you that's giving it isn't Clark County. Clark County doesn't have $750 million just laying around. That $750 million is based on an expected and projected income stream from the 88th 100ths of 1% increase in the hotel tax. I lobbied for and said it should be $1.4 billion way back in 2017, but Sisolak said I was wrong. We've got it covered. There's no problem. Now they got a problem because come 2022, and money's going to be due. You have bond contracts. You have investors that have, just as anybody else would do with a future, you invest money in that stream with an expected rate of return over the long term. You're betting that it will pay for itself, okay? You're betting that's not going to go default. The bond was designed to not go into default, but how? In the one way and here's where Clark County could, solve a problem, produce a problem. If the income stream is not enough to pay down the annual bond debt service, the bond underwriters would have to then go to the county's finance director, basically with a bill, and Jessica Colvin would have to pay that bill, figuring out where she's going to get the money to come from. And she's going to find that for the next few months, the debt service reserve money is there. But when we get into 2022, it's going to dry up. And when it dries up, there's no projection that shows that Clark County's north of $1 billion budget deficit will be subsided by then, save for government bailout. So Clark County could find itself in a position where it says, okay, do we allow this Raiders bond issue to be something that the taxpayer pays north into the future? And if it finds itself in the middle of still paying down that deficit, I'm not saying it would happen, but the answer could very well be no. They could force the underwriters to rewrite the bond. Now, the catch is that the Raiders non-relocation agreement says nothing about that. There's no specific language that deals with a bond issue default. Okay. So the Raiders are only concerned about their money. It's not technically it's not their money. Why? They don't own the stadium. From the Raiders' standpoint, all they're worried about is that the stadium be there. But where the Raiders are harmed, where the Raiders can get into a great deal of trouble, Ed and everybody else, is if they're not able to pay Bank of America. Bank of America is the Raiders' landlord, not Clark County. The layers work like this. Here's the Raiders right here, right? Then here's Elliott McCabe, who is their landlord. And all right. And then here's Clark County, which is stadium owner. Okay. The leasehold is actually owned by Bank of America, not the Raiders. The way they fixed it was so that the Raiders avoided the double whammy of paying rent and the bond issue. The bond issue payment of like roughly 24 million annually. I think the hit's actually a little bit bigger than that. So in order to, actually it is bigger than that. In order to avoid the double whammy of having to pay a bond issue and stadium rent, the fiscal designers very cleverly roped in Bank of America as the landlord. Okay. So you continue to go down here. And yeah, Israel is said to have a vaccine. Owen says, if you're going to limit number of fans, might as well watch the games at home. Yep. How's, by the way, how's Las Vegas? Lee Tracy, how you doing, my man? Haven't seen you in quite some time. Lee says, and congratulations to the success of your sons, by the way. Does Mark have the money to refund people if they can't attend games? The way that works is that, first of all, yes, he does have that money. He has that money to refund that. He has that money if they choose to do so. Because he's got money in two whacks. He's got PSL money, right, which goes to construction, and then the tickets and the suites. Look, between the tickets and the suites, the Raiders have made more money this year in Allegiant Stadium than they've ever had made in their history in Oakland. Let's just get that honest fact out of the way. Okay? Unfortunately, because of this unusual situation, the bills that come due are much bigger. I mean, I always said that. I said, hey, look, it may look to you that the Raiders are making all of this money, but they also have larger payments to deal with. And there's a house of cards built, and you have to hope and pray that the circumstances allowing that house of cards to maintain itself and remain in place. They haven't. We're in the middle of a pandemic. Okay. Edward says, will the bond have an impact on public services? The bond has already had an impact on public services from the standpoint of the opportunity cost of not doing a bond, not doing an increase in hotel taxes that helps to pay for public services and education. A substantial amount of Nevada education money comes from the hotel tax. Don't know if you knew that or not, but it does. Instead, this one is going to, first of all, the money that's coming is going to the payment of the bond issue for the stadium. All right. Does the stadium throw off any cash to offset that? Remember, the talk was, well, you'll have sales tax and activity. Well, guess what? With the cancellation of these events, what is the stadium produced in terms of money outside of construction? Not as much as it would have thought. I say outside of construction because you have to factor in those persons that were employed to build the stadium and the money that they spent around the surrounding environs to get food and related items or just entertainment. Money that they got from working on the stadium, right? Helping to build it, okay? But the 4,500 people that were to be employed to work at Las Vegas Stadium, those people that went putting out their resumes, they're going to be waiting to start their new job a bit longer. That's sad. That's tearfully sad. I know personally people who are going through major problems with this, okay? So I love your coverage of the side of this team. Thanks so much, knowledge. Thank you. Appreciate it. I'm doing my best, and I'll work to get better. Roderick Todd says, I guess Jerry Jones will help Mark Davis out with a loan since Jerry helped him get out of Oakland, one hopes. All the reason why some of the NFL consider him a laughingstock. I don't consider a judge. No, look, whoa. Jerry Jones is not a laughingstock. He is a maverick business owner person who, maverick means he's willing to take chances. Jerry Jones, I think, has, and I've said this before and I'll say it again, a great deal to offer an advice to young Black entrepreneurs. He's done so with me, okay? So the one problem with African-American entrepreneurs is lack of confidence. In fact, that's our biggest problem, is lack of confidence because you think, hey, this person's going to treat me inappropriately because I'm Black. You think this is not going to go well because I'm Black, right? There's a lot of that thinking. What does that add up to but lack of confidence? But people who have been there and done that, like Jerry Jones, when he thought he was going to lose the Cowboys, Jerry said at the Raiders sponsor party that I attended in Las Vegas last year, he says, you have to think, and I adopt this for my thinking, he says, you have to act like you have the last $2 in your pocket. He said, shit, man, you can be making millions of dollars. But even with that money, you've got to act like you got $2 in your pocket. I think that's a piece of advice my mom would adhere to, because she always preaches not overspending or not spending more than you need and spending as little as possible. Okay? These are just good pieces of advice, right? That's, Jerry does that. So I really defend Jerry Jones. It doesn't mean I have to like everything that he does. Some people, think, oh, you're in the pocket for this, you're in that. No. I mean, I like a lot of people, but I don't like every single thing they do. That's ridiculous. That's absolutely ridiculous. Hey, thanks for the question, Roderick. Bowen says, if people stay at home, it's going to be terrible for business such as concession stands. Oh, it'll be horrible. And that, again, goes back to why I assert that the federal government has to do its part, but then the National Football League, MLB, all over the sports industries, the airline industry, the steel industry, the garment industry, the restaurant industry. I can go on, the hotel industry, hospitality industry. We all know these industries. We benefit from them. Some of us work within them. Like Ralph Esparza, I've got to get him back on the show. Point that I'm making is that the federal government needs to do its part, and the Democrats have to stop playing games and putting writers in that they think are going to get this bill passed, and then only to have the Republicans say, oh, take that out. And the Republicans have to stop playing their games, because I'm under the impression that if both parties were in such a position where their very payments were tied to how fast they resolved the coronavirus, they would be sweating bullets along with the rest of us. Okay? Said Vendors, gotcha. Appreciate you, Zen. Thank you. I appreciate you, Edward Reed. Man, I'm glad you think I'm young. And so I'll continue with addressing your questions on this, and I want to come back to the spreadsheet in a modified form and point out something else while I've got this here. Sanju says we all taken a big hit. Yeah. I pointed out this, private investment, the surplus PSL revenue, the team investment. Now, you would say, okay, where should the government, pay in? Where should it come in? What would help out? Well, what would help is, let's say that it, in terms of funding sources, let's say that it said we will add in 200 million, okay? Right here. That's 20 million. That doesn't get us to the beach. But this does, okay? It drops this to 98 million. Actually, you know what? Let me adjust this. You know why? Because this is set at 1. I need to set that at 0.75 because that's obviously not at 1. So now we're looking at 143 million in the hole. Our free stadium operating cash flow is 45 million in the hole. So if we were to have this at 300 million, still not enough for me. Let's keep going. There, 400 million. 400 million. Because then we would have a free stadium operating cash flow that was negative. But why? Look here. Because we have our total event revenue, 3/4 of what we expected because of the pandemic. Same with our sponsorship revenue, right? Okay. We're still clearing $1 billion, but we're taking a hit, and that hit produced for us a negative cash flow in a normal sense. But with this contribution, with a $300 million contribution from the federal government, they can ride out the storm. Now, and I think in fine fashion. Now, this money would not go to the bond issue. Okay? This is not bond issue money. This money simply helps pay for the stadium itself. Okay, that's the idea. All right? Because note, our free stadium operating cash flow is offset by our total project operating cash flow. Okay? So that's what's needed. The question is, will they ask for it? And the other question is, will the federal government provide it? And I'm not concerned with what the political reaction would be, because to not do this has a number of other consequences tied to it. One of them would very well mean the sale of the Raiders. The Raiders cannot weather this storm alone. You understand me? The Raiders do not have the deep pockets to weather this storm alone. The NFL, under normal circumstances, would be expected to provide the assistance, but the NFL is in the position where it would have to turn around and say, hey, look, federal government, we need your help. And the good news is that the league doesn't have a whole bunch of new stadiums being built at once. It just has 2. So it can concentrate its federal government ask on Las Vegas and Inglewood. See what I'm getting at? So a package for the NFL, say if the NFL were able to score $600 million in a bailout, that would help it a great deal. And I think that would be more than well justified because of the enormous downstream benefits. What am I talking about? Look, not having these games means what? It means that the concession workers that rely on these jobs just to keep their homes don't get these positions. It means that the person that expected to work in media relations for the Raiders or for Allegiant Stadium doesn't get to start that job. So again, the downstream implications of not doing this are gigantic. Now, you would say it's just on a per game basis for one stadium. No, because it also impacts bars and restaurants that normally would show the game and would want to figure out how to make some money from it. And maybe we want to have some sort of outdoor screen party, right? Okay, so you say, hey, look, bars are closed, right? And we can't do anything. But wait a minute. What if you have a parking lot in back and clear out the parking lot, put a screen up there, and show that, and that people can sit outside and watch it and stand. You want to do it so it's social distancing, set up tables, 7 feet apart. And then, we have mandatory masks. Friends could share a table, but they're distance, right? And you're looking at it. And each table has hand sanitizer. And you're outdoors. I mean, how cool would that be? So I mean, there are ways. My point is, if you give people the opportunity to build business around the business, to make money around the business that's happening, they will do it. They have been doing it. But when you don't have that business opportunity, when you don't have the game, you don't have the event, you take all of that away like that. That's why our economy is in such bad shape. Our economy is based on movements and events. The money from the federal government is a salve until we get the engine going again, until we figure out how to build a new engine that really we should be thinking about a type of economic processes or an economic system, an economic country, an economic design, an economic plan that is impervious to pandemic. What that would look like, I don't know in its entirety. But I'll have an answer. Okay, I'll have an answer. So it's this something we can get out of, I believe. And I will say this again. Las Vegas is one of America's cultural capitals. Las Vegas is as important to America as Disney. So it is of paramount importance that we make absolutely certain that Las Vegas is restarting. Okay? So, Rockhouse says, I don't want my tax money going to bail out NFL stadiums. They need to pay their own bills, give that money to the people. Where I disagree with you is that, frankly speaking, the money you're talking about wouldn't actually be your money per se. It would be printed money. It would be surplus money as part of a bailout. This isn't something we do normally. Because while you're talking about, let me put it, and I'm glad you wrote that, and I'm glad I posted it, okay? Let me explain that. While you're saying that about stadiums, somebody's saying that about the PPP loan you may have gotten. No one needs to do that with anything. The whole purpose of this, and this is why the Trump administration has so terribly mishandled this. I mean, terribly. Larry Kudlow should not have been their economic advisor. The president should have made me the country's economic advisor. And my point is very simply that Kudlow does not understand what to do in the middle of a pandemic. Larry Kudlow is a television economist. He is not an economic planner. All right? This is not an equations guy. He's not a models guy. He's not a government fix-it guy. That's not him. He's a Fox News, let me spew the latest pseudo-conservative, pseudo-intellectual economic idea that I can so that the people that buy my stuff will love me and I can continue making a good living spewing out that stuff. God love Larry Kudlow, but God help the United States because Larry Kudlow should not be, and I say this with all due respect, in that position. You understand me? Okay? This is for serious players. Not people who are, talking about liberal or conservative and all this. We're talking about getting the money to you so that you can live your best life and have your best health care and provide it for your family as well. Because at the end of the day, that's all that matters, right? Of course. So it doesn't matter, as you say, where you want your taxpayer money to go. Somebody's complaining about the money going to you in a certain area. Hey, do you realize the president issued not one but 5 disaster declarations over 4 days ago? Okay. You think the people in the states like Montana that didn't get those disaster declarations, actually they just did, would balk at it if they found out that, hey, Utah got theirs, or Arizona? Of course. That's not the point. The point is you should want the money going to where it needs to shore up weaknesses. And the fact of the matter is, it's not a matter of something being too big to fail. This is a matter of putting money where there are touch points in the economy that allow a bang of economic revival. That's what you're trying to achieve. That's what we have to achieve. It's the same thing as subsidizing labor in manufacturing with a proviso. If it were left to me to suggest legislation, I would say any CEO of a company receiving these funds that then plotted to move out of the United States should be arrested at the airport. Harsh, of course. But look, President Kennedy threatened to do the same thing to the steel industry CEOs when he was president. Okay? What I'm talking about is not far-fetched. This is something that you can do when you're a leadership group represented by the president that needs to get the country in line fast. And that's where we are at. We need to have mandatory face masks. I don't want to hear this jazz. We need to have indoor ventilation systems that people can buy, even for their home. And if we're going to have people stay in, we have to pay them to stay in. All right? Roderick Todd says his hate for Oakland and undying love for LA will cost him and Bourdain his team in Vegas. That could happen. All right? That is, I never thought I'd say this, but look, I always knew it was out there, and I've said it before. It's a possibility. We talked about that a lot of times here in this space. And that was before the pandemic, folks. I remember when McKibben was working on, when I point to him, I mean Scott McKibben, who was the best executive director, the Oakland Alameda County Coliseum Joint Powers Authority, which is threatening to shut down its arena until January, has ever had. Why? Because of money. Because it's not asking for money. It instead of partnering with the A's and saying, hey, look, let's go hand in hand to the governor, and then let's have the governor and all of us fly to Washington and then knock on the door of the president and say, we need dollars. Instead of doing that, what does he do? He tries to embarrass the A's and talking about Henry Gardner in public. And Henry Gardner is a legendary figure in Oakland government history. I still remain extremely disappointed that the man who was one of the 2 greatest city managers we've ever had, actually, he's the greatest city manager, Robert Bob is number 2, would do that. See, Mr. Bob would never do that. I'm just saying. Mr. Bob would never do that. Anyway, point that I'm making is perfect harmony. Get the money. Get the money. Todd says, sell the name and colors back to the city of Oakland. City's got no money to buy it. And rebrand the team the Las Vegas Gamblers or Desperados. Let me tell you something right now, folks. The city of Oakland has no money to buy Jack Ola. The city is trying to sell its share of the Coliseum to the A's, which right now don't have a lot of money themselves. You know what's funny about this whole episode, Roderick, Todd, and everybody? I'll tell you. What's so funny is that everybody assumes that somebody else has money that they don't have. It's always they've got money, they've got money. Oh, they've got money. Oh, they've got money. Oh, they've got money. And it's fine to ask. Okay. Hold on a second, folks. I'll be right. I'm back. Okay. So at any rate, sorry I had to check in. I'll be leaving here in approximately at the top half of the hour. It's 12:49, so I'll be leaving here at 1 a.m. But yeah, sell the name and colors, Roderick. There's not the money to do that. And then Willie says the Raider name is Las Vegas owned. Oakland has to get a new team, the Fishermen. And so, again, the whole discussion about selling name and colors right now is silly. Period. Okay, I'm just letting you know. Arquez says NFL owners are billionaires. They shouldn't receive any type of government bailout. The money should go to universal income and health care. Stan Kroenke is a big boy and can pay his bill. I disagree. First of all, this whole idea of universal income, the way it's being proposed by the city of Oakland and others, is wrong. Universal income was done, like let's take Alaska, all right? Alaska has a universal income because its oil industry produces so much freaking cash relative to its population. They can afford to give everybody $2,500 a year. The only way you can replicate that in the California sense is through redevelopment, through tax increment financing. In fact, you don't even need to be in California to do that. But to have this system where you believe you can tax people or have donations from Jack Dorsey and all this stuff is nuts. That's not universal income. That's begging on a gigantic scale. That's not universal income. Just letting you know, that's not universal income. And again, as far as the idea of bailing out billionaires, look, the people that have this money that you identify as billionaires, stop saying that because it's really immature. Start looking at what they own and command and the impact it has if it falls. This whole idea that, it's, let it fall is stupid because it falls on you. All right? I mean, what happens when you pick a fight with King Kong? And King Kong happens to be on the top of the World Trade Center. Well, you've got the better guns. You've got the better airplane, faster airplane. Kong doesn't have an airplane. He's crawling on the thing. He's a fool, right? He's going after blonde girl, holding her in his hand, right? Okay. You have to save her, by the way, but I digress. So you're shooting, and that gets to my point, though. There's always this consequence. The consequence with Kong was you risked killing Fay Ray and you risked harming many thousands of people on the street below, many who were looking up at the time. In the movies, Kong falls down straight, right? But in reality, hey, maybe he falls, maybe a wind gust picks him up, maybe he kind of like leans over, boom, hits this other building, crashes that building, has this brick coming down on everybody. It ain't perfect. You know what I'm saying? Just fix it. All right? Just fix it. So, all right? He misses the Oaktown Raiders. John Acosta says, do you see Raiders ever considering going back to Oakland if the city or the A's would either welcome them back? No, because the Raiders made a gigantic series of contractual agreements to go to Las Vegas. And Oakland has changed in such a way that what was the home of the Raiders is almost saying that you can't go home again. You can't. The Raiders, that was history. The future is in an expansion team in Oakland. But to wish for the Raiders back, I'm not saying it's impossible. All right. Because at first I thought the Raiders wouldn't. Well, that's not true. I did think there was a chance that the Raiders would return from LA. Okay. But you know what? I don't think it'll ever happen, but I will say this. Never say never. But you know what? Because it's happened before, it could happen again. Under what circumstances? I never thought they would happen. But on the other hand, I never thought we would be in the middle of a pandemic either. He says, I'm crying. John says, this is Mark Davis karma. He hates Oakland, but has to look at those Oakland and LA Super Bowl banners. Hey, you shouldn't hate Oakland. When he says, ain't happening. Well, folks, with that, I'm going to bid everybody adieu. We'll pick this up tomorrow. Fun conversation. I want to thank everybody for stopping by, and subscribe, please, if you haven't done so already. Bookmark oaklandnewsnow.com too. This will be on oaklandnewsnow.com in minutes as well. Thank you. Okay, see ya.